All right, hello, Sindhu. All right. Hello, Robert. Welcome. We'll give it 5 minutes to have everybody come in. Checking on Facebook. All good. Welcome, Christine and Douse. Still giving time for everybody to come in. Want to greet each other and say hello and hello, welcome. This is not myself. Welcome, Juanita on Facebook. We are just giving it some time for people to ramble on in, and then we'll get started. Welcome, Yankee, Sean, and Ian. All right, I think it's time for us to get started. Let's get started with some chanting. Evening, Charles. Metta Bhavana. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Atupamaya sabbe sang sattanang sukakamatang pasitva kamato metang sabba satte subhavaye sukhi bhave yang niduko ayang nichang ahang viya hitacha me sukhi hontu majjhatta chata verino imam hi gammekatami kasata hontu suki sada tato paracharajyesu chakkavalesu januto samanta chakkavalesu sattantesu panino sukino puggala bhuta attabhavagatasi tattayeti Pummacheva Arya Narya Picha Deva Nara Apatyatta Tatta Dasa Tisa Suchati Ahang Avero Homi Abhyapajo Homi Anigo Homi Suki Attanang Pariharami Ahang Vyamahyang Achari Upajjaya Mata Pitaro Hitta Satta Majhattika Satta Veri Satta Vera Huntu Abhyapajja Huntu Anigha Huntu Sutki Atanang Pariharantu Dukkha muccantu yattaladha sampattito mavigaccantu kammasaka imasming vihare imasming gocharagame imasming nagare imasming rate imasming chakkavale sarajana Simattaka devata sabbe satta sabbe pana sabbe bhuta sabbe puggala sabbe yatta bhava pariyapanna sabba ittiyo sabbe purissa sabbe arya sabbe anarya sabbe deva sabbe pariyapanna sabba ittiyo sabbe purissa I don't know, okay. Adeva sabbe manusa sabbe anmanusa sabbe vinipatika avera huntu abhyapaja huntu anika huntu sukhi attanang pariharantu dukkha muccantu yattaladda sampattito mavigaccantu kamassaka. All right, English. Having seen that all beings, like oneself, have a desire for happiness, one should methodically develop loving friendliness towards all beings. May I be happy and free from suffering. And always, like myself, may my friends, neutral persons, and the hostile be happy too. May all beings in this village, in this state, in other countries, and in all the world systems be ever happy. May all persons, individuals, beings, creatures, and all the world systems be ever happy. So too may all women, men, noble ones, non-noble ones, gods, humans, and beings in the lower worlds be happy. May all beings in the 10 directions be happy. May I be freed from hatred. May I be freed from affliction. May I be free from worry. May I live happily as I am. So also may my teachers, spiritual guides, parents, and friendly, indifferent, and hostile beings be free from hatred. May they be free from affliction. May they be free from worry. May they live happily. May they be released from suffering. May they not be deprived of their fortune justly acquired. All have karma as their own. May all who are in this temple, in this village, town, country, galaxy, may all higher beings, devas who are in this place, all beings, all living things, all creatures, all persons, all those who have arrived at a state of individuality, all women, all men, all noble ones, all non-noble ones, all gods, all humans, all non-humans, all those who have arisen in woeful states, be free from hatred. May they be free from worry. May they be free from fear. May they live happily. May they be released from suffering. May they not be deprived of their fortune justly acquired. All have karma as their own. All right, friends. Welcome, Bella and Gautam. Welcome, Jay Walker. Welcome, Metika and BK. All right, friends. Let's see. We have 2 people on Facebook. Renuka is also watching. Welcome, Renuka. And Juanita, I believe, is also watching. So that's good. So, friends, welcome to another Dhammapalooza. It is our weekly Maggasekha community 2-hour festival of Dhamma, where we do a variety of Dhamma-related activities. We just did some chanting. Later on, we'll do some guided meditation. And in between, who knows? Because each Dhammapalooza is different. This is why when I set the title for the Dhammapalooza, I only have Dhammapalooza and the date. I put the title at the end because we don't know what it's going to be. Right? So for the next couple of minutes in the chat, if you have any topics you'd like me to give a talk on, you can put those topics. If you have any questions you'd like me to ask, you can put those questions. If you have anything, any topic related to Buddhism, monasticism, meditation that you'd like the community to discuss, you can also put that in there. Dhammapalooza is a community event, and therefore it is community guided. So you can talk to each other in the chat, say hello to each other. You can even, sometimes people come in and they say where they're from and greet each other. And you guys, sometimes I see in the chat people discussing Dhamma between each other. That's all great. None of that is interrupting me or or being disrespectful to me or anything like that. So feel free to talk to each other in the chat. And so we'll give it a few minutes. Of course, I always do have a backup sutta for us to read. But we can, if we have questions, if we have talks, if we have discussions, we can do that. If not, we can read suttas. Welcome, Visakha. Oh, sorry. There we go. Hello, Arpita. Welcome. On Facebook, we have. This is the first time I think we have more than a couple people on Facebook actually sitting and watching. Usually people are just scrolling through their Facebook feed and they see me for like 2 seconds and then they go away. But that's good. I figure it's good. And we also are streaming. Don't forget, we're streaming on YouTube, which is the main channel, obviously. We're streaming on my profile on Facebook. And we're streaming on Twitch. Yes, Maggasekha is on Twitch with all the gamers and wacky people. I think last week we actually did have somebody who came on who found us on Twitch and was watching us. And they actually subscribed. So that actually worked out pretty good. All right. So we have Robert has a question. I'm curious if there's any significance to the difference in robes. I've seen 1 or 2 layers, different colors. Some have extra piece folded and laid over one shoulder. Welcome, Ann Tabor, Morris. So, extra piece folded and laid. Oh, I gotcha. So monks have 3 robes, 3 main robes. Where they have the this is the Uttarasanga. This is the main robe. This is the robe that most people see. Right? If you go to a Thai place, you might see some of the underrobes because they wear what's called an angsa, which just like they'll go, bare chested and they'll have the angsa over them, and they'll have the robe wrapped around their waist, which is called the sabang. That the Thai call it the sabang. In India, it's called the sarong. But the Pali, it's called the why am I blanking out on it? We have the Uttarasanga, the Antaravasika. Antaravasika, that's what it's called, the Antaravasika. Right? And then you have the Sangati. The Sangati is a double layer robe that's supposed to be like your cloak, right? And that's what goes over the shoulder. So unfortunately, and mostly I think it's because monks have it probably too easy these days. Most people use they only use the Sangati for when it's time for puja, and it just gets folded over. But this is a third robe. This is meant to literally be like a cloak. It's meant to be like a blanket. Actually, monks are allowed a rug. So like if you're in a cold place, you have if you go to sleep, you have your regular robe. Like when I've slept out and when I did my mini charaka and stuff like that, and when I was in the tent, I used my sangati. And so I've used the sangati as a pillow, I've used the sangati as a blanket, I've used as a sangati, there's a lot of good uses. That's what it's for. But for most monks, it's just a ceremonial piece that goes over their shoulder when they do puja, unfortunately. But it's a really useful, especially if it's actually thick and actually double layer. It's a really useful thing. So those are the three. And then you can have a rug. Although most monks, I've never really seen a rug yet, actually, but you're allowed a rug. And this is kind of like a tarp that goes on the ground, and then you put your sitting cloth on it. And you can the rug is like what you lay on, and when you go to bed and you wrap yourself up. You can also probably wrap yourself up in the rug too, if it's really cold. But so there, you have these different robes, and you also have different other pieces of cloth that do different things, like the sitting cloth, like the robe, like the bathing cloth. But the three main robes are, and even bhikkhunis have allowances for extra cloth, for different types of cloth. I can't remember them off the top of my head. So that's what the different types of cloth are things that were allowed by the Buddha when situations came up where something like that was needed. In terms of the different colors, so the colors just really depended on the root that was used. There's no colors where the Buddha said that you should use these colors. There's only colors that are not allowable. Like for instance, all red, all yellow, all orange, black, blue, green, right? Various colors. Which is kind of funny because some of the Zen robes and things like that would technically not be allowable in our tradition, even though they're cool. I mean, I used to wear black a lot as a layperson. I actually really like the color black, but I can't wear that as a monk, so that's not what I'm going to wear. So the colors basically just came out of whatever roots and dyes were available. So you just dyed your robe that. And, as Buddhism spread to different countries had different robes, different colors. And so now you kind of, it's kind of almost, unfortunately, like a bit of a team thing now with this is the Thai forest robe. And then if you wear the, more maroon, maybe that's the Burmese. And then if you wear more red or brownish, then that's the Thai. And so you have these kind of team colors. And because since I am a monk that basically has no lineage and has no, how shall I say, I'm not connected to any one country, then it's perfectly fitting that I've basically worn every type of, I've had red, I've had maroon, I've had brownish, I've had red, I've had actually reddish that turned to pink. So for a little bit, I had a pink robe because it was faded, and now I have these colors. The only main color I haven't worn for a robe is a dark brown, which I kind of like. But so in essence, the colors of the robes doesn't really mean anything, but in practice, it does tend to mean things. Um, Another way is like the tendency has become that brightly colored robes are for city monks, and more like darker, um uh not faded, but like darker robes are for forest monks. That's not always exactly true, but that is something that that is almost a general rule of thumb, but not always. Sean, Bante, can you give a brief explanation of how going forth has changed your practice? Yes, it's made it worse. Yes, in many, many ways. If you're attached to practice, my practice was way better as a layperson. Way better. I got into deeper samadhis. Um, my mindfulness was stronger. My metta was stronger, and then I had to go ahead and become a monk. um, how has going forth changed your practice? I mean, it's joking, but it is. It's it's kind of like it's kind of like I reached a certain level in my practice that I wanted to rate, like I wanted to, level up, and so I became a monk. But then you kind of like start from the beginning again. It's like it's the same practice, but it's different, and you kind of you have to build it up again, and I'm starting to do that now the last couple of years. It was very hard to do it at Bhavana because it was so busy, and I was just so overwhelmed and dealing with a lot of stuff that was pretty negative, bad stuff. And it was really hard to do anything with my practice then. I mean, I always say I just basically survived Bhavana. I didn't really thrive there. Um and But now I'm starting to be able to thrive. Now I'm like really starting. In some ways I feel like how I am now is similar to the beginning of my practice as a layperson. Like I'm starting to experience things again, like, oh, I remember like that. Yes. Like this is good, and this is time to investigate, time to practice well, and things like there's some modes that are that I'm entering into now that are reminiscent of those early days of practice, especially when I started to develop lots of zeal for the practice and things like that. So I guess that's that. It's uh, one of the funny things about monasticism is like when you're good at it and when you're really sincere at it in lay life, you will set your life up so that you're only around Kalyanamitas. Like I was like, I'm not dealing with these people. And so basically, I only had time for people who were good people, who were worth hanging out with, and that were not going to cause me strife and trouble and practice. Once you become a monk, you have zero ability to do that. You're stuck. Whoever's in the monastery with you is in the monastery with you, and you're going to have to deal with it. Right. And so that makes it harder, but it's also a good lesson. Uh, because even if you do try to create your life in such a way that it's all positive goodness and skillfulness and growth, sometimes situations are going to arise that you can't, you have no ability. You're just going to have to deal with it. And it tests your ability to be skillful. It really does. Right? It tests your, like, anytime you think like you're really good at metta, or you're really good, oh, I don't get angry, or anything like that. It's really when the strife happens that you're tested and you realize how far you've come and how far you haven't come. See, it's a good lesson. So I don't regret anything that I've ever done and gone through. I don't live with regrets. Regrets are silly. But everything that I experience helps mold me into a better person, a stronger person, a better monk, a better teacher, a better practitioner. And so I'm just happy I'm in a better place now. And my monastic life is starting to really feel good and feel um yeah, feel good. All right. Oh, hello, Abby. Welcome. Dear Bante, can students wear a robe when meditating? Uh, as long as it's not a monk's robe. You shouldn't wear a monk's robe if you're not a monastic. Um, but if you want, if you want to wear like some kind of white or, something like that, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I know in like Zen tradition, they have these kind of like meditation robes and things like that. That's not really a thing in Theravada. But I mean, if you want to wear a robe to meditate, I guess that's okay. As long as it's not a monk's robe. Robert has a question. What is the divine mantra? I have no idea. It's probably something in Mahayana that I don't know anything about. So I'm not even gonna attempt to fiddle with it. Technically, isn't the entire point of going forth to create the circumstances to practice more intensely? Maybe. There's a lot of reasons why people go forth. Ideally, yes. Ideally, it's supposed to be um, a more freeing uh, ability to be able to practice and to live in such a way that fast tracks you to awakening. Yes, that's the ideal. Realistically, monastic life is a um, very diverse lifestyle. So I guess it depends on where you are. On the shelf behind you, are those orchids? If so, do they symbolize something specific? They're nothing. They're just like those. What's going up is aren't stems. Those are like for like plants. Like it helps the plant to grow. Those are I don't know what those are. And the only trying to think of besides a lotus, what plant you see prominently in the suttas? Nothing else comes to mind. Creepers. Creepers come to mind, like vines that grow around a tree and strangle it. Um, Buddha uses lots of similes with creepers and lots of similes with heartwood, like the best part of the wood in the tree. Uh, but in terms of flowers, I don't know that nothing comes to mind other than lotuses. Diane says, has anyone else experienced recurring guilt when you are meditating and remember times you hurt people? Should I work through this or redirect my mind when it comes up? It's very painful. Yeah, that's normal. That there's a reason why the Buddha gave us the practice of sila nusati, not mitya nusati. Sila Nusati is reflecting on your virtuous deeds, reflecting on your virtues. Micha Nusati would be reflecting on your bad deeds, reflecting on badness. We don't need to have a special practice that reflect on badness because our mind does it already, right? Unless we're like, psychopathic or sociopathic or something like that, the average person is going to feel guilty about doing bad things to people. That's normal. That's absolutely normal. Um, and when you meditate, yeah, like when meditation puts your mind in a state that, especially as a beginner meditator, it puts your mind in a state where your mind is not trained yet that silence means meditation. So, in psychology, they call this the default mode network, right? So your mind, you start to sit down and meditate. Your mind's like, well, they're not doing anything useful. Why don't we just start thinking? And so, if you have trauma from your past as a child or as an adult or whenever, your traumatic experiences will come up. Right? If you've done bad things, then those things will come up. That's normal. That's part of the path, part of the practice. So, what I would say is if you have reoccurring guilt, what that's telling your mind is telling you that you probably should do something about it. Maybe that is to make amends for what you've done. Maybe you know the people you've hurt, or you have some way to contact them and maybe apologize or make amends in some way. Um, or maybe they're dead. Maybe you've not seen them in 20 years and you have no way to contact them. And so there is no contact. At that point, then it's about practicing forgiveness for yourself. And not only practicing forgiveness for yourself, but practicing reflecting on your good deeds. You need to have a balance. Yes, you've done these bad things, but you've also done these good things. Reflect on the virtuous behavior, the good principles that you live by now, the good deeds that you've done, even small things. Doesn't mean like some big grand gesture that you've done. Small things, like even opening the doors for people or letting people in traffic. Just recollect those things. Many things I still remember. It's funny. You know, I'm admittedly I pretty much was a goody two shoes most of my life. I've never really done anything majorly bad, like to the point where I remember the only thing I really remember ever stealing was I was in maybe like fifth grade, and I had a desk neighbor. We like two people sat next to each other, and I asked Michael Leone was his name, and I asked because he was a good guy, and I went to Catholic school, so I knew a lot of the same people through all 12 grades. Um, and I asked him, I said, "Can I borrow your pencil?" And he said, "No." And so I went around and I snuck and I took it from his desk and I back it. And he found out and he got agitated. He's like, "You stole my pencil," and all these things. And like I still remember that to this day as like something like, yeah, I kind of wish I didn't do that. Right. So even something that small, um, I remember. And of course, some people are hearing this and laughing. It's like, Bante, that's what you're remembering. Jesus, I've done this and this and that and this. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I probably have the karma of being monk in a past life. I don't know. I grew up, I was just a goody two shoes my whole life for the most part. Um, but anyway, so like, yeah, those things you'll remember, and that's okay. Try to make amends, try to work towards forgiving yourself by letting it go, by reflecting on the fact that maybe you do good deeds now. You're not the same person that did that back then. Right? Maybe you even have to maybe if you have no contact with the person, maybe you just have to write a letter. Like put all of your emotions and your feelings and your thoughts and your apologies in that letter, and then afterwards burn it. Let it go. Maybe you need to do some kind of cathartic forgiveness, letting go, so that um, and reflecting on your good deeds, so that you can balance it out and let go, and so it doesn't become um, such a nightmare, right? Like a ghost coming to you every time you meditate. Some things like this that occur to you over and over again, if they could be telling you something you need to do. If all you're going to do is just like, I'm just trying to follow my breath, go away. Like that's just trying to push it away. It's trying to kind of, even if it's not consciously, it's a kind of suppression or repression, right? And sometimes that's not the good thing to do. Sometimes you have to do something about it for it to really go away. And then you won't have to worry about it in your meditation. It'll be one less thing to worry about, one less hindrance. And remember, I worked child protective services for almost a decade. So I worked with a lot of people who did a lot of bad things. And maybe some of you on the stream have done some really bad things, but most of you probably haven't. At least not really, really bad. All right. Very good. The community is talking to each other about the this concept of having feeling guilty about bad past deeds. Yeah, so I mean, you could this shows you how kind of universal a concept this is. Right? We all experience this. That's why Sila Nusati is so good, reflecting on your good deeds. Robert says, if that's what gets you, I say you're doing pretty good, Bante. Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I had a decent childhood. I had a decent life. You know, two parents, middle class. I mean, it could have been a lot better, but it could have been a lot worse too. So I also haven't been put in a lot of situations where I would have the choice between the easy way doing something bad and the good way of doing something. I've always done the hard, better thing, but in many ways it's been easier for me to do that. So can't really judge. Can only encourage. All right. Robert says, I've broken the hearts with both. I broke the hearts of both girlfriends I have via immature, selfish nonsense. Yeah. When matters of love, it can be certain things can be forgiven, especially if you're young and ignorant. And it's um, strong emotions can cause you to do some really stupid stuff, even if you're not really trying to be malevolent about it. Dear Bante, would you talk about your experience going for alms? Any specific challenge or interesting insights you might like to share with us? Uh, Yeah. Expect nothing and that everything will be the worst it'll be. And then when when you get things, then it might work out. So I have very limited experience in doing it. I only really tried the one thing. Um, so I don't really have a lot of experience with it. The one thing I've noticed is that it seems like it's interesting because the ideal is that you have a place where you can have like a populated area where you can get food and then a wooded area where you can go, spend the night. But the problem is that I've experienced is that for the most part, the best place you're going to be able to find enough people to have enough chances of getting food is in a more urban place. And in more urban places, it's going to be a lot harder for you to find some place where you can stay, right? You stay in a park, then the police come and, what are these vagrants staying in the park or whatever? Um, or you're around, people who might be mentally ill or drug use and things like that. And it could be not a safe place to be. Um, of course, you don't really have anything people can rob, I guess, unless they want your robe. But still, so I have a lot to learn still. I have a lot to learn of how to do this, how to do it in America. That might be I'm gonna probably maybe next week or the week after, I'm gonna have Tom Pamuto join me. And that might be something to ask him because he is, as far as I know, the only real monastic who successfully did um a tudong in America for 3 years, like literally living in the forest and literally getting food and doing it for like years. I've never heard of anybody doing it more than a week or two. And so that might be something to ask him about. Did I miss something? Struggles. I guess Diane. Oh wait, no, Diane was the one who asked the question, right? All right. Yeah. Okay. This is the thing about questions, right? Um, I really don't believe that there is such when it comes to Dhamma, there's no such thing as a bad question. A lot of times people feel really embarrassed that they don't want to ask the question because maybe they think, oh, well, Bante's answered it a million times before and nobody else will care about the question or whatever. But you'd be really surprised how often your question actually benefits other people. Right? So you should, if you have a question that you want to ask a monastic, don't hold back. Just ask it. You know, don't hold back. And if you really want to do it anonymously, you can do something like, I have the Ask a Bante series that I've been doing. I haven't done one in a couple of weeks, but then send me a question and say you want it to be anonymous or whatever, and I'll answer it. And then ask a Bante, but I'll do it anonymously. So there's ways of getting your question through, and if you have one, then ask it. No problem. Yeah, Metika, there's just a lot of what it is with going for like be doing charaka or tudong in a place that's not Buddhist, there's a lot of technical nuances that you need to learn, right? I before I tried mine, I had already read a couple books of the experiences of different monastics doing it, and I also spoke directly to monastics. Like, I didn't have direct contact with Tom Pamuto at the time, but I asked Dhamma and different people. I spoke to them about their experiences, and so much of what they kind of gave me as advice didn't work in my own experience. So it's a it's one of those things where you have to kind of gain experience in it, right? Even if people can give you advice, but that advice might not work. So you have to just keep doing it. And I plan to keep doing it, like especially as I start to move out to Colorado. My plan is to do that a lot in Colorado. Just like leave and just go to Boulder, Denver, whatever, and or even just do tudongs between Boulder and Denver. It's like a 30 mile. It's not that long, just to be out there. Um, and so it is something I plan to do more in the future. But I'd like to be able to do it. Actually, I'd love to do it with somebody who knows what they're doing first. Instead of just trying it myself. But I tend to do that. Especially because, most of my Buddhist practice, I was by myself. So I just tried things by myself. That's kind of how my life has been. Just do it myself and figure it out. And if you get some good advice along the way, then try to take the advice. Robert, curious what people think that of teaching kids to meditate. Seems like it would be a great way to help younger kids and teens learn to deal with emotional turmoil that can be strong for them. Yeah, that's what I did with my nephew. My nephew, who I lived with and helped raise from the time he was 1 to the time he was 10, when I went to move to the monastery. I would teach him to when he got angry or things like that. I would teach him to breathe, and when he would have like little angry fits, with his mother and things like that, and he'd get grounded, I would go up there and um, I did something that nobody in my experience ever did. Like usually it would be just like when we're gonna go up to your room, you're grounded to yell at you more. But I went up there and I would start talking to him, and I would teach him, like just breathe. We would just sit, and I'd have him breathe and calm down. And then I talked to him. Well, what do you think happened? Like, why did things go wrong? Why do you think you're grounded? Things like that. So training these basic things is good. You have to do it though within the scope of what a child can learn, and keep expectations within that child's age limit. It's we're not going to say, okay, we're going to sit for a half hour, young 4-year-old. Yeah, that's not going to work. It's not, that's not going to work. Sit for a half hour might start to work with 10-year-olds. Before that, you're not going to put a time on it. It's not worth it. Um, and also for kids, what I would say is that walking meditation might be better for kids because it's active. Right? Trying to squirm, especially boys. This is one of the unfortunate things that they're doing to boys in schools. Like boys are kind of fidgety. Boys like to go out and play and roughhouse and run around and things like that. It's hard for boys to just stand still, you know, and trying to force them to stand still, and well, this person can't stand, so we're gonna get them ADHD meds and all these kind of things. That's not good, right? Um, so we have to kind of understand how kids are, and then tailor the meditation practice to them, their age. Tailor your expectations to their age. And then also, you have to the uh set the role model. You have to be the role model. You have to say, well, this is what we're going to do as a family. We're going to sit for 10 minutes. Like some of you know Rupa, right? Rupa, the whole family used to meditate together. The two girls who I've taught meditation to when they were really young, right? They all meditate together with mom. That's a good thing. And with dad too, they did in the past. But families can do that. And that's a good way of when you make it part of like the normal family thing. I mean, most families can't even sit around the table anymore. That's no good. Like, like, yeah, if your family has no like we're coming together as a family time, it's gonna make it a lot harder. If they don't see that mommy and daddy are meditating, this is a good thing. You're gonna be like, well, what is this? You have to be the role model for your kids, right? You have to say, we're gonna sit, we're gonna practice. It could be part of the, going to bed, like, in that like last half hour, brush the teeth, take the bath, do read the book, whatever, whatever. You add um, like a 10-minute thing where we're going to practice following our breath, or we're going to practice walking or whatever, right? Figure it out. Put in 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Put it as part of their daily routine, and it will become part of their daily routine. Just like, little 5-year-old, 6-year-olds, they can learn to speak 2 languages, 3 languages, and it becomes normal to them. Right? If you make meditation of some form or another become normal to your child when they're really young, then you've put a seed in them that will be there the rest of their life. Even if they get to the point, oh, this is corny. I don't want to do this stuff. I don't want to do what my parents do and all these things. Like they might go away from it as they get older, but the seed's there and they might just return to it. It's a good seed to plant in a child. Can you tell I have a lot to say about kids? That comes from working with them for 15 years. And the ways we're doing them a disservice in many, many ways today. Very, very big disservice to children. All right, but that's not my I'm a monk, so I don't need to talk about that anymore. All right. Question. Oh, we have a good showing today, and lots of people talking, lots of people questioning. The first hour is gone already. That went quick. So I was sick last week with COVID, so I decided to meditate a lot. Went back to work yesterday and really noticed a positive difference. Then the day went on and it faded. Normal, yes. Everything that arises is subject to cessation. Anytime you have an insight, it will arise and you'll feel like this is the most amazing thing ever, but that will cease, that will fade away. Right. And then you're just left with the practice and moving on. Of course. Yeah. You'll have zeal and you'll have, whoa, this is great, but that will fade. This too shall pass. You didn't when that kind of like positive feeling fades away, you didn't lose your insight. It's just that it's become normalized as part of your regular experience. So you don't get that like, whoa, this is great. Just keep practicing. Just keep going. Oh, faded, and I felt very aware of a more negative experience of mine. Yeah. Observe the negative experience of the mind. Is it okay to drink green tea to aid meditation? I guess. Uh, green tea, as far as I know, doesn't have caffeine, so it wouldn't have really an effect one way or the other, um, that I know of. Uh, if you want to drink green tea, that's fine, I guess. If you drink coffee, or if you drink something with caffeine, observe what that does to your practice. This is very good. My best friend taught his younger brother to meditate starting when he was little. They'd sit for really short periods, like 2 or 3 minutes when he was five or so. Well done. That's somebody who knows kids. That's somebody who knows kids. My daughters are 2 and 3. Do you have any good starting point ideas? I don't know if this was before I said what I said, but I just reiterate that you have to make it part of your normal family experience. Right? And like like the person's brother did before, keep it short, keep it simple, and do it with them like you're doing it together. My nephew, when he was like 4 or 5, when I started teaching him, he'd be like, "Okay, okay, Uncle Joe, we're gonna meditate," and he'd go like this. And I said, "Where the heck did he learn this? Like, where did he get this from? Like, he must have seen some kind of pop culture thing where he goes like, like that kind of like yoga thing, the yoga mudra stuff." I said, "You don't need to do that. You just put your hands together like this." Yeah. Start slow, make it part of normal routine, and build up over time. Metika has, would you please speak about adapting to the various monasteries you stay? How do you go about it? The lessons learned. Thank you. Most monasteries have a pretty similar schedule. So you don't really need to, it's not always very drastic. Most have a very close schedule. So it's about morning puja. Like it's like, okay, well, I gotta get to sleep for morning puja. Oh, we're not having puja tomorrow. Great, I can sleep in. That's good. you know, or you go to a place like I love, like Forest Dhamma, where they don't have any morning puja. And that's great. That's my kind of thing. They stay up a little bit later though, but they don't have, and they wake up later. They don't have morning puja though. But so it's the other thing is reflecting on the fact that when you go and stay at a monastery, um, you have to let go of a bunch of things. Like there's a part of me that doesn't want to be here. There's a part of me that would rather be somewhere else by myself because I could do a lot more of my own things. I mean, like I could be doing my morning monastery experience like every morning. When I'm not in a monastery and I do the on YouTube stream and we come together and we do chanting and things like that. I'd have more energy and more time to work on the books that I want to write and building the different things for Maggasekha. I'd have all kinds of things that I could do. But I have to reflect on the fact that no, well, I'm in a monastery, I'm living with other people. I'm going to have to um, let some things go and compromise. And if I want to do things, I'm going to have to do double duty. Like, I'm going to have to attend every event they do, and then I'm going to have to do all my events. Like today, Monday, like Saturday, I did my own event, from like 3 to 5. And then right after that was another event. Same thing yesterday. Yesterday was all afternoon event, or big puja, everything, then afternoon session, and then Suttas Monday on the Discord. Right. So it's just like I'm gonna have to be like, okay, well, it's gonna be a little bit ragged, but I want to be able to do my own things and to build up Maggasekha. So I'm gonna do them, even if it makes me a little bit more tired. Even if my poly suffers for a little bit, which it has because and I've also been kind of sick too. But you just have to let go of some things. You have to let go that and you have to let go. Anytime you live in community, you have to let go of a lot of your own kind of views. And sometimes if I'm in a place where I'm gonna have you know less internet access or whatever, then I'll just say, okay, well, I'm going to just focus on other things. I'm going to not, have enough, not be on the internet as much. No problem. you know, like November, I'm going to be in Australia traveling, going to a bunch of different monasteries. Well, if everything works out, the plane ticket is bought. Things are being scheduled. So we'll see. But all of November, I should be in Australia if everything goes as planned. And so I'm not going to do anything. No Dhammapaloozas, no nothing. So, when you're a nomad monk and you're traveling around a bit, you're just going to have to deal with the fact that things are always going to be impermanent. And all of you who do all the events with me are also learning by proxy. Like John and Audrey and Bella and Gautam, they say, "Oh, we miss morning monastery experience," and honestly, I do too. I enjoy doing morning monastery experience, but that's going to have to wait till December. It is what it is. Um, so it's about letting go and accepting when you stay in different monasteries. And the more you do that, the easier it is to adapt to the schedule and be more at peace with the situation you're in. Hello, Isla. Welcome. Dallas. Okay, Dallas, this is great. Family Asuba meditation. Yeah, maybe when they're a bit older, though. Maybe when they're teenagers. not little kids. Uh, this is why I said hello, Isla. So I have a 2-year-old waving at the screen at me. There you go. That's great. Abby says, I appreciate your insight with children. Well, my whole life has been children. I mean, I had 2 younger sisters and lots of cousins, so I had like that. And then when I was in high school, and then even after when I was in college, like my mom had an in-home daycare for teachers' kids because my dad was a teacher. And so I would come home from high school and I'd play with the kids and I'd help my mom, watch the kids, stuff like that. Um, So even from before I had a career, my job was, I worked with kids. I was always around kids. I love kids. Even if I'm like this past weekend, I've been kind of grumpy, my ear infection, feeling not so good. And then but there's kids. And so I have no smiles for anybody else, but when there's kids, they come and say to me like, "Hi, how you doing?" I don't know. I always have time and smiles for kids, even if I don't have any for adults. But yeah, kids are great. They have so much wisdom. It's really surprising, the young kids. Teenagers, not so much. But the young kids, before they have a filter, you'd be surprised how much wisdom they have. The things that they say. Yeah. All right. So Robert says, thoughts on teaching bullied kids to cultivate metta for their bullies? Not a parent, but along with actually addressing the bullying, this seems like a good way to help kids deal with it. Uh, as part of an overall, as part of an overall um, suite of things, yes, I would say yes. Um, y- Depending on the age of the child, the whole thing, like, well, maybe they have, maybe their parents hurt them or whatever. Like the kind of like logic may or may not work out very well because if they're younger, it's more kind of this emotional, like, and being bullied. I was bullied. I was called fat ass before I was even really fat. Like it was like I look back, like I was almost 400 pounds after college, and I thought like, well, how are they calling? And I look at a picture of myself from like sixth grade. Like, how are they calling me fat ass? Like, I didn't look that big, but so I get it. So it's a yeah, just like in regular life, you have to stand up for yourself. You have to be able to set boundaries, and unfortunately, the way the things that we kind of teach kids today, we kind of turn them into a little bit of a like a wet blanket. Like we kind of turn them into, we'll just take it. And that's not a good thing. Like even the Buddha doesn't accept the gift from the Brahmin of the insults, right? Like you have to be able to set boundaries. You have to teach your kids to stick up for themselves and set boundaries, right? And how to deal with people because you're training them for life. When they go out into the world, they're going to deal with all kinds of ridiculous people. Right. And if you train them, well, just go to just go to the teacher. Right. I mean, you should, but like if you train them, like, well, then okay, we're just going to go to the CEO. We're just going to go to whatever. It's not good. It doesn't. It's not really teaching them how to be an independent person. Right? It's kind of like, well, I'm just going to take it because I don't want to. I don't want to really bother anybody. Yada yada, this and that. So yes, having metta, teaching metta for the child is good. To have metta for people who will hurt you, but also teaching them how to be anti-fragile, teaching them how to stick up for themselves, to set boundaries, to get out of situations that are bad for themselves, to have the self confidence and the self worth to not just be a wet blanket. I think that's all important. That's the ways that you deal with people who are being bullied. I just took it. I just like kind of internalized it because I'm a very agreeable person. I don't like to cause trouble. I don't want to cause people trouble. I just took it. And it didn't really, I mean, it didn't go anywhere. It just festered inside, really. It's not a good thing. So, and this is somebody whose dad did teach them the old school way of if somebody's bullying you, you hit them once and then they won't do it again, right? That's the old school way. There's a lot of validity to that way, but we don't want to teach kids to be violent. Um, but there's better ways too. I do agree. So I was taught that way, and I still kind of just took it, just sat there and took it and just internalized it. Um, because I wasn't really a very physical, violent, I was a goody two shoes, as I said. Um, and I think there's better ways of dealing with it. There's a more balanced way. um, very good, Gretchen. My 15-year-old boy meditates by himself, and I've been teaching my 15-year-old and 8-year-old to meditate since they were little. You've sown the seeds, and those seeds are growing. That's very good that the 15-year-old is meditating by himself. Very good. So it's the practice that will help you not feel like a yo-yo. Um, I think the problem is that we think that things shouldn't be a yo-yo, but that's really the path. It's not a straight line. It's like this. It's like an EKG, right? This is why you have a line like from Ajahn Chah who says, when you're happy, meditate. When you're sad, meditate. When you want to meditate, meditate. When you don't want to meditate, meditate. No matter what is going on, the highs and the lows, if the path is there, if the practice is there, then you just do the practice and you just do the best you can with whatever experience you're going through. You just keep practicing. The highs and the lows, the ups and the downs will be there. It's all part of the practice. It's all part of to learning how um, to refine, develop your practice, be more skillful, and develop your wisdom. What's the difference between equanimity and apathy? You know, apathy gets a bad rap, even from me. Let me. I remember looking up the definition of apathy a while back. Here's the definition for apathy: absence or suppression of passion, emotion, or excitement. Lack of interest in or concerns for things that others find moving or exciting. That's nibbida and viraga. that's disenchantment and dispassion. That's what that is. Right? But we have this kind of like negativity. Like, oh, apathy is a bad thing. Or maybe yeah, sometimes apathy is a bad thing. If you have a lack of like this is like the Buddha says there's only one time in this Dhamma in discipline that I approve of being lazy, and that is if you are practicing in a Dhamma in a discipline that is unskillful. If you have a teacher that says kill people and sleep with everybody and steal and do whatever, then the Buddha says be lazy there, right? So by the same token, the Buddha obviously would not want you to be apathetic in developing skillful things, but you could be apathetic in developing unskillfulness, right? So equanimity, when we talk about this in Buddhist context, is about a stillness of mind, a mind that is not going towards our likes and our dislikes. It's not going towards greed and hatred, right? It's not being torn back and forth like rubber banding. It's just there, peaceful, calm, tranquil, unmoving, still. That's equanimity. A mind that's not being dragged around. That's what equanimity is. So they're two different things. Equanimity and apathy are not really synonyms. So you can't necessarily compare them too much. They do have two kinds of things. Robert says, "What's sleeping in this context?" Um, if I don't have puja, then sleeping in can be like till 7:30 because I don't have breakfast. If I have breakfast, then it's earlier. But if I don't have puja, like tomorrow's an off day. So especially because Dhammapalooza, I mean, this ends at 10, but I almost never get to bed before 12 on a Dhammapalooza because I'm so amped up. It takes me, every night it takes me a good hour to an hour and a half to kind of settle down and just ramp into going to bed. Um, and on a Dhammapalooza night, sometimes like 12 or 1. So I'm happy that here I have the day off the next day, which is good. Um, but yeah, like if you have to wake up for breakfast, then you have to wake up earlier. If you only have one meal a day, you can sleep in later. It works out that way. Now, if you have yeah, no, I guess that's exactly, that's it. Hello, Steve. Welcome. Abby says, "Are pets allowed to live in monasteries?" Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, pets have whatever, depends on a lot of different factors. Cats, dogs. Yeah. That Kathy, the former office manager at Bhavana, used to say, used to tell me about the old days, the early days of Bhavana, where people would be like, "Oh, Buddhists will take care of the animals," and would literally just drop off like dogs and cats and all kinds of animals, like on the driveway at Bhavana. Like, so, yeah. I don't think that you'll ever find an animal in my monastery, though. Highly doubtful. But many monasteries have them. All right. Very good conversations. Good conversations talking to each other um, about various things. Robert and Sean, now uh, Abby and who else? Gretchen. I like it. I like to see this stuff in the chat. Are you in Australia, Robert? If you're going to be in Australia, you have plans to visit Buddhist Society of Western Australia. I don't know. I'm going to be at Bodhinyana for a week. If I end up going to Australia, I'll be in Bodhinyana from the 7th to the 13th, and then hopefully Dhammasara, the nuns' monastery, to see Aya Pasanna, an old friend of mine, and also the bhikkhunis there, obviously. Um, will I go into Perth? Probably not. I don't know if I'll actually be. I would like to actually see that building, though. The building where I saw Ajahn Brahm give talks for 7 or 8 years. That I watched the talks, the Friday talks. That city center. I would like to see it. That would be something to see something I've watched in hundreds of videos and step foot in it in person. All right. I'm going to be all over the country. multiple flights, multiple places. Um, Cindy says, do you on? I assume, do you own a lot of personal items? Do you travel with all of them when you go to Australia? um, Technically, I don't really own anything, but I use things. Yeah, I mean, I have this laptop, I have this microphone, I have this webcam, I have books, I have camping equipment, I have camera, like I have a bunch of things, um, that are used for a variety of different things. Do I technically own them? No. Uh, you know, but I use them. And so no, I don't go traveling. If I'm staying at a place for like a while, like 3 months, I'll bring like, more stuff. I'll bring like, extra like shirts, and more toiletries and things like that. And I'll bring things like my Yeti mic and my HDM, my webcam and stuff like that. But if I'm like traveling and I'm not going to have internet, then I basically don't bring anything. Like, most of the basic stuff will be provided for me. Um, so I travel very light. Like I don't travel with checked in bags when I go on a plane. Um, Usually just the personal item and a carry on item. That's it. When I go to Australia, probably just that. What am I going to need in Australia? I'm not doing any streaming. I'm not going to bring my laptop. I'm not going to bring, I'll bring my phone and my phone won't even work in Australia. It'll be a different country. So I probably don't even need to bring my phone. Maybe just my tablet, you know? Well, I guess I'll need my phone for the flight back and things like that. And for the internet. But, you know, other than that, no, I won't bring much. Hello, Esmontes. Welcome. Malika says, which monasteries will be staying at when you come to Australia? Um, Staying, I don't know. Visiting, probably a bunch. As of right now, the only monastery I'm staying at is Bodhinyana. But I'm supposed to visit Dhammasara, Santi, um, in to see visit to meet Bante Sujato in Sydney. I'm going to fly into Sydney. That's where the the woman is a elderly Sri Lankan lady um, who comes to Bhavana and who lives in Australia. She knows Bante Ji and she came to Bhavana. Her and her sister lives in Georgia in America. And this elderly Sri Lankan, Anoma is her name, and her daughter lives in California. Right, so she comes to America a couple times a year, and she came to a retreat, and I was teaching at the retreat, and she said, "Bante," she says, "you remind me so much of Ajahn Brahm, like how you teach and how you're always giggling and smiling and things like that." And I said, "Oh, well, that's a heck of a compliment. I accept that compliment." And then, she came again and she's like, "I want you to come to Australia." So I was supposed to go to Australia in 2020. We know what happened. COVID happened. And so now I'm hoping that Australia won't go, full crazy on lockdown. And if I go there, they'll put me in some kind of facility or something. Hopefully that everything will be equanimous and good and no problems and it'll be all good. And then I'll be able to travel and no problems. So we'll see. Abby, if you want to send a picture to my email, you can send a picture. Your mother has my email and things like that. Everywhere I go, I end up doing some kind of children's program with the kids. The Sri Lankans love when I do things with their kids because they say Bante, they don't want to listen to our monks. They like you. They like the Western monks. And I said, well, they're because they're me, right? You came to America just like my mom came to America, but I was born here, so they're like Americans. They can connect with me, and I can connect with them. So they said, "Oh, we want it. We're going to do a children's thing." Even the Thai people here, we're going to do a children's thing during the Vasa. Myself and Anagarika Jens, who's the Anagarika here, who was a child psychologist, a school psychologist. So the two of us are putting together a little like a children's program, yeah, here at Empty Cloud for the Thai people, their children that come. Well, Isla's getting shout outs from all over the world now. All right. Well, how far back am I? Oh, I'm about 10 minutes back here. Have you ever had any interesting plane conversations, Bante, or uncomfortable people next to you? Um, Only one time on a plane did I ever have somebody actually talk to me. It was a Indian American guy, and oh no, no, no. Well, actually, no, no, never mind. The last time I went to Colorado, I had a 5-year-old boy right next to me. And the boy would say, "Oh, see my car? See this? See that?" And like, the father was a young father. He was probably like, late 20s. And he would say, "Oh, don't bother him with that." And I said, "No worries about it." Like, it's like I would talk to the 5-year-old and things like that. And like the father didn't really talk to me, but the kid would wanted to talk to me. And so I would talk to the kid. And then, like at the end when we were waiting to get off, I explained to him, "Oh, I work for Child Protective Services." And then he asked like, "Oh, what about what can you teach me about like Buddhism and kids or whatever?" And I talked to him a little bit. um but other than that, there was the one Indian gentleman years ago, who we talked most of the flight, but mostly people just don't say anything. They don't do anything. And I think this is actually connected with a tip that people gave me recently about going on tudongs, that people seem to be more comfortable approaching a group than just one person, right? So I think like Bante and Aya, who are the abbots here, they probably have people come up to them more than people come up to me, and it's because there's multiple of them, right? I think there's some kind of dynamic there. It feels safer. I don't know. Um, but I've had in my early days, pre Biku, I had some interesting experiences, interesting run-ins with people, that I can talk about in another time. Don't we only have a half hour left, and I would talk for a while on those things. But since then, since I became a bhikkhu and started traveling, very, very little contact with people, very little like people coming up to me and talking to me. Um, do I travel in my robe? This is the only thing I wear. The only thing I wear is my robe. I'm a monk. That's how we do it. Malika says, I've done retreats with Ajahn Brahm and visit Dhammasara. Very good. Well, maybe if you'd like, we can meet. If I'm obviously on my website. I will post my travels and where I'm going to be going, and then because I do know a bunch of people in Australia from online, right, including one of the bhikkhunis at Dhammasara, who I've known since she was a layperson. She was part of my online community since she was a layperson. So, and now she's part of the community as a monastic when they allow her to come on every once in a while. All right. Manuel Alejandro Rodriguez Rivera. Welcome, my friend. It's good to see you again. How to get your email, Bante? Well, at the end, I'll post everything. But my website is maggasekha.org. Email is my name at Gmail. There. So Manuel has a question, and I'll answer that, and then maybe we'll do some meditation and end it out. What is the difference between humans and animals? I mean, is it only our karma or the mental states that we can access? I would understand this difference better. In terms of the samsaric journey, there's no difference. A being is a being is a being, right? There's no way to kind of identify a being in samsara other than what they're currently born into, right? In terms of like the levels of, the levels of in the Buddhist tradition, the animals are in the states of woe. The animals are in a negative state. Not as bad as the hells, obviously, but they're not as it's not as positive as being a human. And that's because for the most part, animals do not have the ability to hear the Dhamma and to understand the Dhamma and to act with intention. Mostly they're acting out of instinct. Now, there's certain animals that seem interesting and that they might have, there's some maybe intention there, and there's some, there's various different things. But in general, the difference is that animals are, beings in a state of nature. They're beings in a state of instinct and a state of kill or be killed. And that's not a state to be able to practice and hear the Dhamma. So there's differences in that regard. And you could argue that there's differences in value. For instance, in the monastic rules, killing a human is much more grievous than killing an animal. Stuff like that. But as Buddhists, we want to avoid killing every being, even little bugs if possible. So that really shouldn't necessarily make a difference. And so I guess that's good. Hello, Anthony. Welcome. What is your take on Buddhist cosmology, Bhante? Some people take it very literally, and some do the opposite and take it as all symbolic. Curious about your own take. In general, I keep an open mind. It's funny. Now, of course, this is not a proven scientific thing yet, but it is pretty big. This string theory, M theory, and I remember watching a video years and years ago of this. Maybe it was Michio Kaku or Brian Greene or one of them, and they were talking about this, and they were saying like like in the science they have like nine, can go up to like 11 dimensions and such and such. And the scientist was saying there could be like dinosaurs and beings and stuff just going right past me and I wouldn't know because they're in a different dimension. And like they graphically showed like all kinds of beings, like dinosaurs and things going right past them, like on the streets in New York, you know? And that kind of like was like, whoa, that could be the Devas. Like like that's a that's like a quasi possible scientific explanation for things like devas, which only beings that have the deva, the divine eye and ear can see and hear. It's interesting, isn't it? So I'm against only taking them figuratively or symbolic. I'm against that. I don't think that's a good thing. It's also against the right view. Um, what I do think is that people should, at the very least, have an open mind. I'm inclined towards liking the cosmology because of my love of history, my love of mythology, my love of fantasy stories. So like, the Devas and the Asuras, that's the gods and the titans of ancient Greece. Like there's like a lot of like earthbound Devas are elves. So like, and you look at like, okay, these elves that live in trees, like that's a universal mythology all over the world. What's going on with that? What's going on with that? In Celtic Europe, they're elves. In ancient India, they're devas. What are they? What's being experienced here? Who knows? All right, so exploration of this is like being a being a what's the word? Cynical skeptic, I think doesn't get you anywhere. A cynical skeptic is, I know everything already. There's no such thing as a mind outside the brain. There's no such thing as all these ridiculous fairy tales and things and stuff like that. That's not good. That's not going to get you anywhere, especially when you start to meditate. Because when you start to meditate and you start getting all kinds of experiences and beliefs and views and ideals and being questioned, that's not going to be good for you. You're going to have a lot of cognitive dissonance. Your head might explode. You know. Um, so at minimum, I suggest keeping an open mind. That's what I would say. At minimum, keep an open mind. Anthony, you're at Dhammapaluza? Anthony, actually, when I used to do my, you done my meta meditation. I used to specifically say the metaverse. Now I kind of just say other universes, dimensions, whatever beings there may be anywhere. I do have some science advisors, and I have I've had, and I also follow astrology and astronomy and things like that. I love all that stuff. So, but anyway, well, please give my regards to uh, Seminary Tavira and Venerable Kachayana and Samanera Dhammavara see who else. Oh, what's her? I don't know if she's no, she's not there anymore. And of course, obviously, Aya Tataloka and Aya Sobana. And whoever else might be there that I probably don't know, or that I might have forgotten. And while you're there, you might even maybe we have Pacha, who's a person on our Discord, is trying to recruit some of the Bhikkhunis in California to come on our Discord. I have also tried to do that in the past, but they're all busy. But if we can, Tavira is technically on it, although she's really busy, so she's rarely like on it. But I see her log in every once in a while. Whoa, you had Brian Green as a professor? Wow. All right. Actually, I think it was Brian Green in the video, if I'm not mistaken. The video I was talking about the dimensions and the dinosaurs going by. All right. I think wow, we're late. Let's do at least 10 minutes of meditation. It's not going to be guided. We'll just do it just do quiet meditation for 10 minutes. All right, friends. We have a few minutes left, so why don't we read some Dhammapada verses? Oh, what happened? Hmm. Ah, here we are. This Dhammapada section was one of the most hard-hitting, profound sections of my early practice and my early delving into Buddhism. This is so impactful and so true, and you see this wisdom echoed in other places as well. This is timeless wisdom. the thousands. Better than 1,000 useless words is one useful word, hearing which one attains peace. Better than 1,000 useless verses is one useful verse, hearing which one attains peace. Better than reciting 100 meaningless verses is the reciting of one verse of Dhamma, hearing which one attains peace. Now, here is one of my signature Dhammapada verses. This might be my signature. Other than hatred is not appeased by hatred, this is probably Bhante J's number one, number two verse from the Dhammapada. Though one may conquer 1,000 times 1,000 men in battle, yet he indeed is the noblest victor who conquers himself. As a matter of fact, the first Pali name I was giving, Jayanta, right? That means victorious one. And so this is, and now Jayasara means a most excellent victory. So this is this specific line is very, very closely connected to me. I really like this line. The most important thing is to conquer yourself. Most important thing is to develop yourself. Self-conquest is far better than the conquest of others. Not even a god, an angel, Deva, Mara, or Brahma can turn into defeat the victory of a person who is self-subdued and ever restrained in conduct. Though month after month for 100 years, one should offer sacrifices by the thousands, yet even if only for a moment, one should worship those of perfected minds, that honor is indeed better than a century of sacrifice. Though for 100 years one should tend to the sacrificial fire in the forest, yet if only for a moment one should worship those of perfected minds, that worship is indeed better than a century of sacrifice. Whatever gifts and oblations one seeking merit might offer in this world for a whole year, all that is not worth 1/4 the merit gained by revering the upright ones, which is truly excellent. To one ever eager to revere and serve the elders, these 4 blessings accrue: long life and beauty, happiness and power. Better it is to live one day virtuous and meditative than to live 100 years immoral and uncontrolled. Think about that. It's better to live one day mindful and virtuous than a whole life otherwise immoral and uncontrolled. Better it is to live one day wise and meditative than to live 100 years foolish and uncontrolled. Better it is to live one day strenuous and resolute than to live 100 years sluggish and dissipated. Better it is to live one day seeing the rising and falling of things than to live 100 years without ever seeing the rising and falling of things. Better it is to live one day seeing the deathless than to live 100 years without ever seeing the deathless. Better it is to live one day seeing the supreme truth than to live 100 years without seeing the supreme truth. So, friends, if you are old and you've lived an immoral life or an uncontrolled and unmindful life, and then you start to practice the Dhamma, well, whatever much time you have left in that life can be worth more than all the life before. This is a good lesson, right? Not to focus, not to worry too much about the past. The past is gone. Now is the time to practice and develop. And the time that you have left can be worth more than 100 times of the time that's already passed. All right. Well, that's it, friends. Let's do our final. There we go. So, if you'd like to keep in touch with things that are going on when I go live, when I upload videos, when I um, announce retreats, do all kinds of things, then you should go to Maggasekha.org and put your email in the top right. That will subscribe you to the emails that you will get anytime I post something new. You'll get an email. You can also in this YouTube channel click subscribe and then click the bell so that anytime I go live or anytime I post some video, you'll get a notification for that. We also have an online community on the Discord program. This is a community that focuses its practice and study on the early Buddhist texts, the suttas, the Nikayas, and the Agamas. So, if that is something that you feel you'd like to learn from and practice from, you can join us. You can send a email to maggasekha@gmail.com and ask for an invite. That is on the screen now. I have Dhammapalooza every Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern. On Wednesdays, I upload Ask a Bante if there's a question. So if you have a question for me that you'd like me to make a video out of, then you can send me an email and ask the question, and I can make a video out of it. It'll be for your benefit and also for benefit of many people years to come who might come across it. So you never know when you ask a question, as I was saying before, who it could benefit. You never know. Um, I'm also going to start. I think I've been toying with starting a Dhammapada verses series, like going over a couple lines and then talking about them and going through the whole Dhammapada. I think I'm going to do that. It's a nice, simple, easy thing, and that's something I could do with my phone um, and record and not have to worry about too much. I think I might start doing that. Little video, probably videos, maybe 5 or 10 minutes long, not even that long, just short videos. And so I think that's about that for us to keep connected. At middle of August, August 13th and 14th, that weekend, I have a retreat coming up, Zoom retreat on the suttas, framework for study and practice. So if you want to get into the suttas and you're having trouble, or there's lots of stuff that make it a hard barrier to entry, hard to get into, the repetitiveness, etc. If you'd like, to have a kind of Sutta 101 to understand the context, the background, the reason why things are the way they are, to be able to learn how to maneuver through the suttas more easily, all that kind of basic stuff. Then I suggest you come and join the retreat. You can find a link to that in the on my website. If you scroll down, you'll see an article where it has the link to the Eventbrite for that. And that's that, friends. Let's do our sharing of merit, and then we'll call it a night. So Manuel is asking, how do I join the Discord? So hopefully you saw that. Send an email to the email on the screen, and you can join us. All right, so let's do our sharing of merits to end out the stream. Dukkha patta chani dukkha, bhaya patta chani bhaya, soka patta chani soka, hantu sabbe pipaniyo, ettavata cha amehi, sampatang punya sampatang, sabbe deva anumodantu, sabba sampatti sittiya, akasata chabumata, deva naga mahedika, punyang tang anumoditva, charang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share in this merit that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth Devas, Nagas, and Yakas of mighty power, share in this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddhist dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends. And one last thing to announce. I am now doing weekly Insight Timer sessions on Insight Timer Saturdays, now at 3 p.m. And they're an hour and a half. It's a Dhamma talk, meditation, and Q&A. And it's been rocking. Like, my these Insight Timer sessions get like 100 people. It's been quite amazing to see so many people on the Insight Timer, reaching a lot of people, learning Buddhism and things like that. So it's been really good. So I've decided to make that a weekly thing now. So if you do use Insight Timer and you want to jump on at 3 o'clock, if you find me as a teacher on Insight Timer, and then you can see when I do my live streams and things like that. So Saturdays 3 p.m. And that, I wish you a very spiritually successful and peaceful week, my friends. Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again.